Water. From the rivers that run through our cities to the groundwater that feeds our farms, it's the resource every single human being relies on to survive and thrive. Water is literally life for all of us. But access to this basic human right isn't equal across the continent. In many places, like remote communities, people rely 100% on bore water directly from aquifers below. And in more and more cases, drinking water is actually shipped into towns at a huge cost. For First Nations people, our need for and connection to water tells an even deeper story. Water connects us to our country and culture, the oldest living culture on the planet. Songlines live in rivers across our lands and the aquifers underneath them, telling our stories and connecting us. Water is the blood that flows through our bodies. And right now, that connection, that culture, that basic human right is being threatened right in front of our eyes. In the Northern Territory's Beetaloo Basin, fracking corporations like Tamboran Resources and Empire Energy are racing to set up fracking gas fields across the lands of the Yenua, Garawa, Alawa, Mudburra, Gidangji, Mara and Jingli nations. Think hundreds of gas wells, each one sending down a big drill to smash through layers of rock to get to the shale gas trapped within it. And this gas is mostly climate-wrecking methane. They pump down a toxic mixture of chemicals and tens of millions of litres of water using horizontal drilling to fracture the shale rock and access the gas. Tamboran have even shipped out a mega fracker from the US, which has the capacity to horizontally drill more than 4 kilometres long. That's as long as 11 Titanic ships, 27 football fields, or 185 semi-trailers. By our calculations, that'll need at least 120 million litres of water per well. That's at least 1,200 times more water than the average Sydney or Melbourne household uses per year at least. Some of that fracked fluid stays underground, while the rest of it comes back up to the well through the groundwater layers, where it is stored in ponds and the gas is extracted. As if handing over that much of an already scarce resource to climate-wrecking fracking wasn't bad enough, there's another massive factor to consider here. The Northern Territory has a massive wet season, which can last half of the year. Just this year, the region where frackers like Tamboran and Empire want to drill flooded. And it can be a yearly occurrence, made all the more severe by climate change. When big rains and floods like this happen, those same toxic wastewater ponds can run into the surrounding country and waterways, damaging it for generations. And we've seen these issues play out already. In an explosive 7:30 report, the ABC revealed that Tamboran sprayed over 300,000 litres of toxic wastewater from one of their exploration wells in the Beetaloo Basin in October. They also allowed the same well pad to leak more toxic wastewater after heavy rain in November. And they have been accused of pumping more wastewater filled with heavy metals onto cattle paddocks. This is just from one exploration well. Imagine the devastation if full-scale production goes ahead. Surely governments know about all this, right? Surely there are plans in place to protect communities' drinking water and sacred songlines both above and beneath the ground. Yes and no. Back in 2017, traditional owners gave evidence in the Scientific Inquiry in Hydraulic Fracturing in the Northern Territory, known as the Pepper Inquiry. It resulted in 135 recommendations to mitigate the environmental, social, cultural and economic risks associated with fracking. The Northern Territory government lifted their ban on fracking on the condition that they would implement all of the 135 recommendations. Over 5 years later, and one of the biggest outstanding concerns not yet addressed by either the Northern Territory government or fracking corporations is the lack of protections for water. And yet, fracking corporations are pushing to fast-track their production licenses. You know, the permissions they need to open up massive gas fields, and they want it as soon as possible. If they are successful, it'll open the floodgates to fracking destruction across the Beetaloo Basin, steamrolling traditional owner consent and contaminating precious drinking water. All the threats traditional owners have been speaking up against for over a decade will become a terrifying reality. That's why upholding those same recommendations and speaking up now is so urgent and so crucial in this fight to protect country and water from fracking. Nobody should have to fight so hard for the most basic of human rights, access to clean water. We don't want fracking and mining corporations destroying our water, our way of life, We want to be able to fish and hunt and gather our bush tucker and medicine now and for all generations to come. It's up to us to make sure that our shared resource, water, is protected for all future generations. Share this video.